So crowdfunding is not a new concept, but it is new in the terms of bringing technology to something that people have been doing for hundreds of years. If you guys didn't know, actually the Statue of Liberty, the base of it was crowdfunded. And so now, since 2008, Indiegogo launched the industry in 2008, and in 2010, $880 million was raised through crowdfunding. Now in 2015, over $34 billion was raised in crowdfunding across all the platforms. And to put that into comparison, $30 billion was raised through VC funding in 2015. And crowdfunding is doubling every year. And so what we're excited to talk about today is how this is impacting businesses, and how it's also bringing amazing businesses to life. So first off, thank you guys for joining us today. We have Bruce from AfterShokz and Jose from Skulpt. So can you tell me a little bit, Bruce, for starting out with you, about you and your business?
Sure, I'd be happy to. So we do something a little bit different in the headphone space. We have bone conduction headphones, and bone conduction headphones allow you to keep your ears open while you listen, and sound is transmitted through your cheekbone. I'm wearing mine now, as you can see, and it allows people to be safe while they enjoy their favorite outdoor activity, be it running or cycling or skiing, whatever that may be. And at the same time, while they enjoy their music, their safety is intact because they're aware of their surroundings. This is we did our first CES in 2011, this is our 6th CES, and when we get into the crowdfunding piece, we did our first crowdfunding campaign in 2015. I'm sure we'll get to talk about that.
Great. I'm Jose Bohorquez. I'm co-founder and CEO of Skulpt. Skulpt has been around for about 6 years. We started in the medical space. My co-founder is a neurology professor at Harvard Medical School, developed some really exciting technology that was really the first tool that could be used to look inside people's muscles and understand the health, the fitness of the muscle, how much fat you have stored in different parts of your body, etc. About 2 years ago, we decided that while it has great applications in the medical world, it's technology that's so great it should be accessible to anyone. And we decided to transition and develop a consumer product to help people really understand their bodies and improve their health and fitness with that knowledge. So we've got a tool that helps people ultimately get stronger, leaner, healthier by giving them insight about their body, and then giving them the recommendations and the guidance to help make changes so that they can improve their health and fitness.
That's awesome. And so both of you guys are amazing success stories on Indiegogo and raising hundreds of thousands of dollars. Bruce, starting out with you, tell us, how did you come to choose Indiegogo as the method to launch your product?
Well, it's interesting that initially Indiegogo was not our first choice. Kickstarter, being a bigger platform, bigger community. But we then hired a coach to help us with our campaign. And she kind of steered us in the direction for our first campaign to Indiegogo because there was a lot more hand-holding. In fact, I think you were actually my first contact at Indiegogo when we had the conversation. And it just seemed that Indiegogo offered us even though the audience, the community was smaller, it made us feel more comfortable that our campaign would be successful on Indiegogo because of the hand-holding.
And so tell us a little bit, so just in general, why did you choose crowdfunding as that path to market?
Well, it's interesting. Now again, we are an established company. We had global distribution. So crowdfunding for us was not, certainly raising the money is always nice, but really for us it was more about customer engagement. And that was the motivator for us to engage in crowdfunding. And it proved to be a very successful undertaking, not without a lot of work, I might add, but we were so pleased, and we have another new product that'll be coming out in the second quarter of this year that we plan to do another campaign, again revolving around the validation of the product with people voting with their pocketbooks, which is great, and then just adding more customers to our database for continued outreach, and it was certainly a very positive experience.
No, and I love that. It really is. It's people voting with their dollars to say that this is a product that they want to see happen. Oftentimes people coin it as this is this is the new focus group, where people look at a product, you tell your story. Just for people who aren't familiar with, when you put up a campaign on a crowdfunding platform, you will tell your story, and it is now a great market and path to launch. And so people get to vote with their dollars, say, yes, I want a Trek, I want a chisel, and I will pay money before the product is even actually on the market. And so, Jose, can you tell us a little bit, now you've launched 2 products through crowdfunding, can you tell us a little bit about why did you choose, and you've raised funding between the 2 of them, so why did you choose to come back to the platform again, even after raising funding?
Yeah, for us, as I mentioned earlier, we made this major transition as a company from being focused on the medical applications of the core technology and working with pharmaceutical companies, with clinical researchers, doing a lot of, using our technology to evaluate people's muscular health, to then focusing on consumers. And, that's a big transition. The customers are very different. And so from the get-go, our focus was, let's make sure we build something that is really valuable to consumers, and let's iterate on it. Let's figure out what's most important to them. And even before we built prototypes, of course, we talked to many potential customers and many consumers about what was important to them and how we could make the technology as valuable to them as possible. But the next phase for us was going to a much larger audience and really building that community that would allow us to continuously improve the product. Right? When you have something that's truly unique and different, there's a lot to learn from your customers. Your customers are going to be your best teachers in that respect. And so for us, crowdfunding was, far more than the fundraising or anything like that. It was, hey, this gives us an opportunity to start that conversation, a year or months or a year before starting to ship product. And what that allows you to do is, test everything from how do you properly position it. Like when we launched our campaign, we would change the website almost daily, just try different things and see what resonated more. Listen to the comments. People would email us directly. We'd reach out to them and ask them, what is it about this that's exciting to you? What could we do better? What would be, how can we just generally help you achieve your goals? So more than anything, I think that's the most valuable part of launching a crowdfunding campaign. And when we launched our first product, the Skulpt AIM, about 2 years ago through Indiegogo. And one of the things that happened is that we learned a ton from that experience, and having shipped many thousand units. What we learned, we then took and we put into the chisel, which is our 2nd generation product. It's at a lower price point, so it's $99, much more accessible for consumers. We learned, for example, that for a lot of users, they didn't need a display on the device. I'll show you guys kind of what the device looks like. It's like this. It's like almost the form factor of a phone, so it's fairly small. And the AIM has a display, whereas the chisel doesn't. That's something we learned from our customers, was that because it integrates with the phone through Bluetooth, you don't really need to have a display on the device for a lot of people. They could just interact with it, and a lot of other insights that we got. And then we wanted to bring it to that community again, because in part it's like, hey, they helped us get to this point. We want to provide it to them, get the earliest access to the product. They'll be the first ones that we ship. And it's been a really valuable tool for us.
So it sounds like, so what I'm hearing about some benefits outside of money, because a lot of times you do hear that word crowdfunding, and there's so much emphasis on funding, but what you guys are saying, it's a lot about customer engagement, being able to get real-time feedback from your most engaged evangelists and the people who, again, are willing to contribute to something without even having the product available. And what other benefits would you say that there are when you choose this route to launch?
Well, I mean, clearly the feedback, as Jose was saying, that we got from the nearly 7,000 backers is pretty incredible. And I think the thing that makes it real to the consumers that are participating is the real connection. We actually, one of our perks, we ran a contest that we have one of our backers here with us out in Las Vegas.
Nice. At
the show. And so there was so much interaction between our consumers and ourselves, some of the color choices we made. And what the most interesting thing is that, of course, we have certain ideas when we come up with the concept of the product, And then when you get the feedback from the people who are going to buy the product, and it runs a little counter to perhaps what you were thinking, that type of information is invaluable from really helping a company make maybe a very costly mistake by getting kind of real-world feedback as to what the consumers are really looking for.
Definitely. And Jose, you guys learned a lot about your audience too through your campaign, that there was a change in the target of who you were targeting, correct?
Yeah, I mean, you learn just a ton of things through that. And one of the additional benefits of doing a crowdfunding campaign to launch a product, especially when it's just very different, when there's no good predecessor that you can point to and say, well, we're just like them, but slightly different, you're just very different, is that you get a group of people who sort of inherently are excited about the opportunity to be part of that development process. So, when you just go out and sell a product to a person and they pick it up on a shelf and they just purchase it, they're just looking for the product. But when they're part of that journey through crowdfunding, they feel like they're not just customers of the company, they're essentially like part of the team. They're helping to provide feedback. Not everybody sees it that way, but a lot of them do. And so you'll get, for us, we would get, like people would get the product and then they'd go get, like $100 test done at a clinical facility and send us the results and be like, wow, this is so cool. I paid $100 to do a DEXA scan, and then I did this thing with the Skulpt aim, and they're like almost identical. And then you get the bad stuff, like, oh, I really wish, charging was faster, or I really wish these little things were better. But they seem to do it with an attitude of, hey, let's make this even better. Let's continue to move the technology and the product forward. So I think that's something that's much harder to get when you go through, the more traditional launch paths.
And also, like you're saying, you're catalyzing an audience, and you're catalyzing a community of evangelists who really feel like they're building this with you, which is amazing. But as you can imagine, I mean, you said you had 8,000 backers, so that also brings some challenges. So can you tell us a little bit about the challenges?
Oh yeah, lots of challenges. One of the issues is, of course, when the campaign comes to an end and the fulfillment process begins, logistics can be a real nightmare. We did our campaign worldwide, and a lot of the international, there's different restrictions and shipping requirements and forms to be filled out. The international fulfillment was a real challenge, and then coordinating some of the perks, some of which were from not just our own product, but other product, coordinating, getting that product out to the backers is a challenge. There are many challenges in the post-campaign, and it does require recognizing that there was a lot of pre-campaign work in terms of preparing for the campaign, and then, of course, while the campaign is running, coming up with different, providing updates to the backers on a regular basis, providing new opportunities to move to the next level, and what that might look like, and then, of course, once the campaign ends, all of the associated fulfillment requirements. So it's very rewarding, but it's not without its challenges and its commitment to making it work. And really, this is another one of those type of things where you get out what you put in, and the more you put in, the more you can get out of that campaign.
How about you? What would you say?
Well, I'd say that the other side of the coin on having a group of really enthusiastic supporters is that they're really anxious to get the product. And anybody who's ever launched a hardware product knows that hardware is really hard, and you're always faced with a lot of unforeseen issues that come up, and you want to deliver the best product you can to your customers. And so now you're managing this thing where you have people who really love the idea of what you're building, and you really want to get it to them as fast as possible, the best thing possible. And so you have to just manage that process. One of the things that we learned and then changed, like we launched the first product, we were a few months late, like practically all hardware products that launch on crowdfunding are. But one of the things we learned was, for the next one, we really want to have that relationship. We're actually going to be ready to go into volume production when we launch the campaign.
That's awesome.
And so with the chisel, for example, like the campaign ends the next couple of days, but we're already in volume production, starting this week, having built our first batch last month. And so it just helps with that relationship of now being able to deliver on time, and now it just allows the conversation to be focused on other things that are much more important to deliver that best experience.
I think what Jose says is very true, and I think what you've seen now in crowdfunding is that there's a segmentation to the the pure play startup who absolutely needs the funding in order to bring the product to market, and that's probably a higher risk to those backers in terms of actually getting not even in a timely manner, but just getting the product at some point, versus the companies who have been in the marketplace, have delivered products in the market, have been through the process of product development, from inception to completion. And our ability then to satisfy those backers with keeping to the timelines that we've kind of promised in the campaign is easier for folks like us than it would be for the. So you can see a delineation now where everybody initially assumed crowdfunding was only for the guys who had an idea on the back of a napkin and needed to get money to make it into reality, versus companies who are looking at it from a customer engagement standpoint and feedback from consumers, validation to the product concept. You're seeing a lot more of that now on all the crowdfunding platforms.
And we'll end with this section with asking, like, the one last question. If you had a piece of advice for anybody here who is aspiring to also lead or to follow in your amazing footsteps, one thing that I would just, based on this, what I would recommend is to really be able to, when you set up your campaign, you want to make it really easy for people to say yes. So for you guys, you are established companies, it is easy for you to show your track record. So for you, be sure to show who you are, what you're doing, and why people should believe in you. So that'd be my piece of advice.
No, and that's a very good piece of advice. The confidence on the part of the backers to support your campaign is critical. Everybody, I'm sure, has read negative press on some of the campaigns where they almost really a scam in terms of taking money from backers for a product that that never was really going to come to market. So I think due diligence on the part of the backers is an important message, and at the same time, the commitment and the consistent interaction on the part of the company that's doing the campaign with those constituents now that have committed themselves to you, and you really owe it to them to be honest, not kind of go away from saying something that may or may not be true, but to be consistent and communicative to the constituency is a very, very important message.
Well, I think the advice for people who are considering a crowdfunding campaign is really be certain that you can deliver what you're promising when you start a campaign. Meaning that it shouldn't be like you have a spec sheet. It should mean like you have like a really ready to go into production prototype, because just going from that to full manufacturing and launching a product is going to be challenging enough. If you're still trying to figure out the details, you're going to be in a lot of trouble. Secondly, I think, probably some people think about crowdfunding as actual a fundraising thing. It's really not. Whatever funds you raise from a crowdfunding campaign almost never are what's going to allow you to launch the product, because launching a product is very expensive. And so just consider that you should probably have at least some funding outside of that ahead of time. And I'm sure most people doing this are thinking of raising funds after that. So it's just important. Again, it's about the expectations that you set. I mean, it's a high risk. We're in Vegas, and it's kind of like that. It's a little bit of a high stakes gamble, because of course the worst nightmare for startups is having a successful campaign and then not being able to deliver. I mean, that's the sort of thing that just not only ruins your reputation, but just hurts the overall community as a whole. So you do have a responsibility to make sure that you're going to be in a position to deliver. And then the second piece of advice is really see it for what it is, which is a great opportunity to learn. You're able to interact in a much deeper way with customers, and create that community that then you can go to over and over. Like one of the things that we found was when we would conduct surveys for our backers, we had like 70% response rate, something ridiculous. Like everybody's just, they're so excited and they're so into it that they're really willing to give you feedback. So that's such a powerful tool. Just make sure you leverage that appropriately. Have really good lines of communications with your backers. Let them know whenever, if you're running into issues, let them know as early as you can and communicate with them as often as you can.
That's good advice. Julie, do we have time for questions first? Julie?
Actually, I'm sorry, you guys, we don't, but I'm going to encourage everybody to visit Jose and Bruce in their booths. Exams called A through C. That was a great panel, you guys. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.